The Great Hall of the Galaxy Council was the largest building ever made by any species in known space. Its walls stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. The ceiling was made of clear crystal that showed the stars above. More than 4,000 different alien species sent their representatives here to make laws and decide the future of the galaxy. Ambassador Catherine Price had been coming to this hall for 23 years. She remembered her first day here when she was young and full of hope. Back then, she believed that humanity could find its place among the stars through friendship and hard work. She believed that if humans showed they were peaceful and helpful, the other species would accept them as equals. She had been very wrong. Today, High Chancellor Vorath stood at the central platform. He was a Zelkari, a tall creature with gray skin and 6 eyes that could see in every direction at once. The Zelkari had been one of the first species to discover space travel, and they had never let anyone forget it. They looked down on younger species, especially humans, who had only been traveling among the stars for less than a century. "The vote is complete," Vorath announced. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. "By a majority decision, human expansion beyond the Orion sector is now forbidden. Furthermore, Earth will give 30% of its titanium production to the Council every year to pay for peacekeeping operations." Catherine sat very still. Her hands were folded in her lap, but inside she was burning with anger. This was the 4th time this year that the Council had voted to take something from humanity. First, it was their right to build new colonies. Then it was their fusion technology patents. After that, the Council demanded control over human agricultural developments. Now they wanted their metals to dot. Daniel Hughes, her young assistant, leaned close to her ear. "Ambassador, this is getting worse. They are slowly strangling us." Catherine knew he was right. Every year, the restrictions grew tighter. Every year, humanity lost more freedom. The other species feared what humans might become if they were allowed to grow without limits, so they used their votes to keep humanity small and weak. "Connect me to Secretary General Webb," she whispered. "Use the secure channel. This is priority 1. On Earth, in the city of New Geneva, Secretary General Marcus Webb sat in his office at the top of the United Terran Federation headquarters. He was 67 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his whole life trying to make peace with alien civilizations. He had believed, like Catherine once did, that patience and diplomacy would eventually earn humanity the respect it deserved. When the transmission from the Council reached him, he listened without speaking. Catherine explained everything. The new restrictions, the titanium tax, the way Vorath had smiled as he announced the vote. "They will never stop," Catherine said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "We could give them everything we have, and they would still want more. They do not want partnership with humanity. They want submission." Marcus turned to look out his window. The sun was setting over the Alps, turning the snow-capped mountains orange and pink. Earth, humanity's home. The place where humans had learned to walk, to think, to dream of the stars. Admiral Grace Holloway stood nearby, waiting. She was the commander of all human military forces, a woman who had fought in 3 different wars and never lost a battle. She had been warning Marcus for years that this day would come. "Sir," she said, "I think it is time we talked about Project Sovereign." Marcus did not turn around. "Tell me." Grace pulled out a small device and projected information into the air. Charts, numbers, and images of ships appeared. "For 18 years we have been building in secret," she explained. "New ships with weapons the Council has never seen. Faster-than-light engines that do not need their relay stations. Shields that can stop any weapon they have. We did not want to use these things. We hoped we would never have to. But we prepared just in case." "How many ships?" "Over 3,000 combat vessels. Another 10,000 support ships. Enough to defend every human world and colony." Marcus finally turned around. "And if the Council sends their fleets against us?" Grace met his eyes. "Then they will lose." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Outside, the last light of the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Marcus thought about his children, his grandchildren. All the young humans who would grow up in a galaxy that saw them as threats to be controlled. What kind of future would they have if Earth continued to bow before the Council? "Call back Ambassador Price," he said at last, "and prepare a broadcast to every human colony in the galaxy. It is time for humanity to make a choice." 2 days later, Catherine Price boarded a transport ship leaving the Council station. As she watched the massive structure grow smaller through the window, she felt something she had not felt in years. Hope behind her. Daniel was reading messages from Earth. "The Secretary General has scheduled a galaxy-wide broadcast for tomorrow. Every human settlement will receive it. He is also inviting the Council to watch." Catherine allowed herself a small smile. Good. Let them see what happens when you push humanity too far. Back on the Council station, High Chancellor Vorath was celebrating with his allies. They had won another victory against the dangerous humans. Another step toward keeping them under control forever. "They will complain, as always," laughed Representative Thalkesh of the Mithrani hegemony. He was a large creature covered in thick scales, with teeth designed for tearing meat. The Mithrani were warriors who respected only strength. But what can they do? They are one species against 4,000. The numbers are against them. Vorath nodded, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "Exactly. They have no choice but to accept our decisions. In another 100 years, they will be completely dependent on us. They will pose no threat to anyone." None of them noticed the human cleaning staff quietly leaving the room. None of them realized that humanity had been listening to their private conversations for decades. None of them understood that every insult, every restriction, every vote against Earth had been recorded and remembered. Humanity did not forget. Humanity did not forgive. And humanity was done pretending to be weak. In his office, Marcus Webb finished recording his message to the galaxy. He reviewed it once, then nodded in satisfaction. "Send it," he ordered. "Send it everywhere." The transmission began its journey across the stars, traveling at the speed of light toward every corner of known space. By tomorrow, everything would change. The galaxy would learn that it had made a terrible mistake. It had underestimated
humanity.
The emergency session of the Galaxy Council began at exactly noon, Galactic Standard Time. Representatives from every member species filled the Great Hall, their voices creating a constant buzz of conversation. Something was happening. Rumors had spread through diplomatic channels all night. The humans were planning something, but nobody knew what. High Chancellor Vorath took his place at the central platform, trying to appear calm. But his 6 eyes kept moving nervously, scanning the crowd. The human section was empty. Ambassador Price had left 2 days ago, and no replacement had arrived. This had never happened before in the 73 years since humanity joined the Council. Order Vorath called out. "We will have order in this chamber." The noise slowly died down. Thousands of alien faces turned toward the Chancellor, waiting for an explanation. Before Vorath could speak, the holographic display at the center of the hall flickered to life. The image of Secretary General Marcus Webb appeared, larger than life, floating above the assembled delegates. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard as stone. "Citizens of the Galaxy Council," Marcus began. His voice was translated simultaneously into 4,000 different languages. "For 73 years, humanity has been a member of your organization. We joined believing that we would find friendship among the stars. We believed that by following your rules, contributing our knowledge, and helping in your wars, we would earn your respect." Vorath felt his stomach tighten. Something in the human's tone warned him that this was not going to be a complaint or a negotiation. "We were wrong," Marcus continued. "In return for our loyalty, we received only contempt. You restricted our territory, claiming we expanded too fast. You took our technology, saying it was for the common good. You taxed our resources to fund your projects. You did not treat us as partners. You treated us as a threat to be controlled." The hall was completely silent now. Even the Mithrani warriors, who usually whispered jokes during human speeches, were listening carefully. "Some of you may think this is another protest, another complaint that you can ignore. It is not." Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. "Effective immediately, the United Terran Federation is withdrawing from the Galaxy Council. All treaties are cancelled. All trade agreements are ended. All military partnerships are dissolved. The silence broke like a wave crashing on rocks. Voices erupted from every direction. Delegates shouted in 100 different languages. Some called for war. Others demanded explanations. A few simply stared in shock, unable to believe what they were hearing. "This is madness," screamed Representative Thalkish, rising from his seat. "You cannot survive without the Council. You are one species among thousands." Marcus did not react to the outburst. He continued speaking as if nothing had happened. "Human space is now closed to all non-human vessels. Any ship that enters our territory without permission will be considered hostile. We will defend ourselves with any means necessary." Borth finally found his voice. "Secretary General, please reconsider. This action will have consequences. The Council will be forced to respond." "I am counting on it," Marcus replied. For the first time, a hint of emotion appeared on his face. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was something closer to satisfaction. For decades, you have believed that humanity was weak. You thought that because we chose peace, we were unable to fight. You were wrong. The holographic display changed. Instead of Marcus, it now showed images of shipyards hidden deep in human space. The delegates watched in growing horror as the pictures revealed fleet after fleet of human warships. These were not the small patrol vessels the Council had approved for humanity. These were massive battleships, bristling with weapons that no one had ever seen before. "We did not spend the last 20 years complaining about your restrictions," Marcus said, his voice returning to the display. "We spent them preparing. While you voted to limit our technology, we developed new technology you cannot imagine. While you tried to keep us weak, we grew strong in secret." Admiral Sorik of the Mithrani hegemony studied the images with professional interest. He had spent his entire career fighting wars, and he knew military power when he saw it. The human fleet was not just large, it was advanced. The weapon designs were completely unknown to him. The ship configurations did not match any Council database. "How is this possible?" whispered General Veth beside him. "Our spies reported nothing about this." Sorik shook his head slowly. "Because they wanted us to see nothing. They showed us exactly what we expected to see. A weak, struggling species barely holding on to its small corner of space." On the display, Marcus Webb appeared again for his final words. "To those who might think of attacking us, I offer this warning. You have spent 73 years underestimating humanity. You thought our patience was weakness. You thought our kindness meant we could not be cruel. You were wrong about everything." His eyes seemed to look directly at Vorath. "We are not the species you thought you knew. We are humanity. We walked through ice ages that killed most life on our planet. We survived plagues that destroyed half our population. We climbed out of poverty and ignorance to reach the stars in less than 10,000 years. We are survivors. We are fighters, and we bow to no one." The transmission ended. The display went dark. For a long moment, nobody moved. The great hall of the Galaxy Council, usually filled with noise and activity, was as quiet as a tomb. Then Vorath spoke, his voice barely a whisper that his microphone amplified throughout the chamber. "What have we done?" Nobody answered. Nobody had an answer. The galaxy had just changed forever. None of them knew what would happen next. In her quarters aboard a transport ship racing toward Earth, Catherine Price watched the Council's reaction through intercepted communications. She saw the fear in their faces. She heard the panic in their voices. "Good," she said quietly to herself. "Now they know how it feels." Daniel Hughes stood beside her, his face pale. "Do you think there will be war?" Catherine considered the question. "Maybe. Probably. But if there is, it will not be the war they expect. They have never fought humanity when we were truly ready. They have never faced us when we were not holding back." She turned away from the screen and looked out at the stars streaming past the window. "They wanted to keep us small," she said. "They wanted to make sure we could never threaten them. Instead, they created exactly what they feared, a humanity with nothing to lose and everything to prove." The ship continued its journey toward Earth, carrying news of humanity's Declaration of Independence. Behind it, the Galaxy Council descended into chaos. And ahead, a new chapter of human history was about to begin. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, chaos had taken hold. This planet was the largest marketplace in the galaxy, where merchants from every species came to buy and sell goods. Millions of transactions happened here every day. Fortunes were made and lost in minutes. Now, it was falling apart. Merchant Kilos, a Zelkari trader who had worked on Nexus Prime for 40 years, watched the screens in horror. Every number was red. Every chart pointed downward. His entire fortune, built over decades of careful work, was disappearing before his eyes. The human shipping lanes are closed, his assistant reported. All Terran freighters have returned to Earth. There is no one to carry cargo to the Outer Rim colonies. Kilo slammed his hand against the console. Find alternatives. Hire other ships. There are no alternatives, sir. Human captains handled 60% of all galactic shipping. Other species do not have enough ships to replace them. And even if they did, they do not know the routes. The humans kept their navigation data secret. All around them, other merchants were having similar conversations. The trading floor, usually filled with the happy noise of deals being made, echoed with screams of anger and cries of despair. In one day, the galactic economy had lost more value than it had gained in the previous decade. The humans had been so quiet, so humble, so willing to do the jobs that other species considered beneath them. They had carried cargo through dangerous regions where others feared to go. They had delivered supplies to remote colonies that no one else would visit. They had become the invisible backbone of galactic trade. Now, backbone was gone. On the agricultural colony of Verdant 7, Administrator Eulith stared at fields that would soon be empty. The Torvin Collective had claimed this world 300 years ago, but they had never been able to grow enough food to feed their population. The soil was wrong. The climate was difficult. Their own crops barely survived. Then the humans came. Their scientists studied the planet and created new plants designed specifically for Verdant 7's conditions. Yields increased by 300%. The colony went from struggling to survive to producing enough food for 12 other worlds. But the human scientists had left with all the others. And without their constant adjustments and improvements, the modified crops would fail within 2 growing seasons. "We will starve Eulith," said to her council. "Not just this colony. Every world that depends on our exports. Billions of people will die. Can we not learn to maintain the crops ourselves?" asked one of her advisors. Eulith laughed bitterly. "The humans offered to teach us 20 years ago. We refused because we did not want to be dependent on human knowledge. Now we have neither the knowledge nor the humans." The irony was not lost on her. By trying to avoid depending on humanity, the Torvin Collective had become completely dependent on them without even realizing it. Far across the galaxy, Admiral Sorik convened a war council aboard his flagship, the Mithrani vessel Conquest. The ship was enormous, a city floating in space, designed to project fear into every species that saw it. For 300 years, the Mithrani had been the military power of the Council. When force was needed, they provided it. "We must attack now," General Veth argued, his scarred face twisted with frustration. "Every day we wait, the humans grow stronger. They are fortifying their borders. They are building more ships. Time is not on our side." Sorik listened without responding. He had seen the intelligence reports. Human defense platforms had appeared at every major entrance to their territory. Weapons of unknown type. Power readings that should have been impossible. "Our spy networks have gone silent," his intelligence chief reported. "Every agent we had in human space has been captured or eliminated. We do not know what is happening behind their borders." "Then we attack blind," Veth insisted. "We have numbers on our side. 8,000 warships against whatever they have hidden." "Mathematics does not lie," Sorik finally spoke. "Mathematics assumes you know all the variables. We do not." He pulled up historical records on the main display. Images appeared of the first human contact with aliens 73 years ago. A Zelkari raiding party had attacked a human colony ship, expecting easy prey. Instead, the humans had fought back with a ferocity no one had ever seen. They had captured the Zelkari vessel using nothing but hand weapons and determination. Within 5 years, they had reverse-engineered the alien technology. Within 20 years, they had built a fleet that threatened the raiders' homeworld. That is why the Council chose to accept humanity rather than fight them, Sorek said. Because our ancestors understood something that we have forgotten. Humans do not fight like other species. They adapt. They improve. They never give up. So what do you suggest? Veth asked sarcastically. That we do nothing? That we let them grow until they are strong enough to threaten us all. I suggest we send scouts before we send armies. I suggest we learn what we are facing before we commit to a war we might not win. Veth started to argue, but Sorek silenced him with a look. The Admiral had not risen to his position by being foolish. He understood that wars were won through intelligence as much as firepower. The scouts were sent the next day. 20 small, fast ships designed to observe without being detected. They approached human space from different directions. Using every stealth technology the Mithrani possessed, they returned 3 days later, only 15 of them. The report they brought sent shockwaves through the Mithrani command. Human defense platforms had detected and destroyed 5 scouts before they even reached the border. The weapons used were unlike anything in Council records. Energy beams that ignored shields. Missiles that changed direction faster than any computer could track. But that was not the worst of it. Deep inside human territory, the scouts had detected energy signatures consistent with a new type of faster-than-light travel. One that did not require the relay stations the Council had spent millennia building. If the humans could travel anywhere instantly, without using Council infrastructure, then they could strike anywhere without warning. Sorek read the report 3 times before he believed it. They were building this while we mocked them, he said quietly. They were developing technology beyond our understanding while we voted to restrict their expansion. We thought we were containing a threat. Instead, we were giving them motivation. He thought of all the Council sessions where human requests had been denied, all the restrictions that had been imposed, all the times alien delegates had laughed at human ambitions. Every single one of those moments had been fuel. Fuel for human determination. Fuel for their secret programs. Fuel for the fire that was now threatening to consume the galaxy. Send a message to High Chancellor Voreth, Sorek ordered. Tell him that military action against humanity would be extremely unwise at this time. Tell him that we need to find another way. General Veth looked disgusted. You would have us surrender without fighting? I would have us survive, Sorek replied. There will be time for fighting later if it comes to that. But right now, we need to understand what we are dealing with, because I am no longer certain that we are the predators in this situation. He looked out at the stars, toward the distant region where humanity waited. I think we might be the prey. 6 months had passed since Earth's declaration, and the Galaxy Council was breaking apart in the beginning. The member species had talked about unity. They had made speeches about standing together against the human threat. They had promised to support each other no matter what happened. Those promises lasted less than 2 weeks. The first to break ranks were the Villani, a peaceful trading species known for their beautiful artwork and their refusal to participate in wars. Their representative, a graceful being named Silith, had privately contacted Earth's new government through secret channels. She brought gifts and desperate hope. Secretary General Marcus Webb received her in the new capital of the United Terran Federation. The city had been built on the plains of North America, in the region that had once been called Kansas. It was far from the old power centers of Earth, a symbol that humanity was starting fresh. My people have no quarrel with yours, Silith explained through her translator. Her voice was musical, almost singing. We voted against every restriction the Council placed on humanity. We tried to speak in your defense, but our voices were too few. Catherine Price sat beside Marcus, carefully analyzing every word. She had kept records of every Council vote for the past 2 decades. She knew exactly which species had supported humanity and which had worked against them. We know, Catherine said. The Villani were among the few who treated us fairly. We remember this. Salith's eyes widened with hope. Then you would consider trade with us? Perhaps even friendship. Marcus leaned forward in his chair. His face was serious, but not unkind. We would consider many things, he said. But you must understand something important. The old relationship between humanity and the galaxy is dead. We will never again accept a system where others decide what we can and cannot do. Any partnership with Earth must be between equals. Nothing less. The Villani agreed without hesitation. A treaty was signed within weeks. The Villani received exclusive access to human markets and technology. In return, they provided intelligence about what was happening inside the Council. News of the deal spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Other species watched and began to calculate. The Council was failing. The economy was collapsing. The Mithrani were threatening war but doing nothing. Perhaps it was better to make peace with humanity now before it was too late. Within 3 months, more species had approached Earth, seeking agreements. Some were small, unimportant civilizations, desperate for protection. Others were major powers looking for advantage in a changing galaxy. All of them received the same message: equality, or nothing. Not every species was ready to accept this new reality. High Chancellor Vorath watched his coalition crumble with growing desperation. Everything he had worked for was falling apart. The council that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was dissolving before his eyes. He called an emergency session and made one final attempt to rally the member species. They seek to divide us. He thundered from the central platform. His 6 eyes blazed with emotion. The humans are picking us apart one by one. They offer friendship now, but once they are strong enough, they will crush us all. We must stand together or fall separately. But the words rang hollow. Too many species had already calculated the odds. Too many had seen the economic devastation and military uncertainty. Too many had decided that alignment with humanity offered better prospects than loyalty to a failing council. The Mithrani hegemony, however, refused to bend. They were warriors. They had never lost a major war in 300 years. The idea of bowing to humans, those weak creatures who had spent decades begging for scraps at the council table, was unacceptable. General Veth stood before the Mithrani Supreme Council with a proposal. His scars seemed to glow in the harsh lighting as he spoke. The humans have divided the galaxy with their deals and their promises. But military power still matters. If we destroy their fleet, if we conquer their worlds, the other species will see that strength still rules among the stars. Admiral Sorik objected. Our scouts have shown us that human technology has advanced beyond our understanding. An invasion could be catastrophic. Your scouts saw border defenses, Veth countered. We have no idea what they have deeper inside their territory. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps they have spent everything on those platforms and have nothing left. We will never know unless we try. The Supreme Council debated for hours. In the end, fear of appearing weak won out over caution. The Mithrani hegemony announced a massive military buildup. Their propaganda networks declared that war with humanity was coming, and that victory was certain. On Earth, Admiral Grace Holloway monitored the buildup with professional interest. Satellite arrays tracked every Mithrani ship movement. Intelligence assets reported every supply shipment and troop transport. They are positioning for an invasion, she reported to Marcus and his cabinet. Based on their logistics, they will be ready to move in 6 to 8 months. Secretary General Webb studied the tactical displays. Thousands of Mithrani warships were gathering at staging points along the border. It was the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in centuries. Will they really attack? Asked Catherine. They must know it would be suicidal. Grace shook her head. They have convinced themselves that we are bluffing. Their commanders believe that our technology demonstrations were exaggerated. They think that if they come at us with enough ships, they can overwhelm whatever defenses we have. Can they? Marcus asked Grace, allowed herself a small smile. No, not even close. The Mithrani are about to learn a very painful lesson about underestimating humanity. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we will let them come. And we will show the entire galaxy what happens when you attack Earth. He turned to Catherine. In the meantime, continue the diplomatic efforts. Keep reaching out to species willing to make fair agreements. When the Mithrani fail, and they will fail, we want to be ready to build something better from the wreckage. Catherine understood. This was not just about winning a war. It was about creating a new order. One where humanity would never again be treated as a threat to be contained. The months passed. The Mithrani fleet grew larger. Other species watched and waited, most secretly hoping that the invasion would fail. They had grown tired of Mithrani arrogance over the centuries. A human victory would change everything. On the border of human space, defense platforms hummed with power. Human crews ran final checks on weapon systems the galaxy had never imagined. Behind them, the full might of the Terran fleet waited in reserve. Commander Samuel Drake stood on the bridge of his ship, valiant, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of enemy warships were preparing to destroy everything he had ever known. He was not afraid. He was ready. Every human was ready. Let them come, he thought. Let them see what humanity can do when we stop holding back. The waiting was almost over. The real test was about to begin. The Mithrani invasion began on a quiet Tuesday morning. 8,000 warships crossed into human space in a formation designed to inspire terror. The fleet stretched across millions of kilometers, bristling with weapons and filled with warriors eager for glory. General Veth commanded from his flagship, confident that this day would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy was reminded who held true power among the stars. All ships, maintain formation, Veth ordered. Proceed to the first human colony at standard attack speed. We will crush them world by world until they beg for mercy. His captains acknowledged the order with enthusiasm. They had trained for decades for battles like this. Their ships were the finest the Mithrani had ever built. Their crews were the best warriors in known space. What could one small species do against such might? The answer came 3 hours later. Commander Samuel Drake watched the enemy fleet approach on the tactical display of the Valiant. His ship was one of 200 defending the Kepler system, the first major human colony in the invasion path. Against 8,000 Mithrani vessels, the numbers seemed hopeless. But numbers were not everything. All ships. This is Drake. He broadcast to the human fleet. Initiate Protocol Omega. Cross the defensive line. Human vessels activated systems that the Council had never seen. Weapons that bent the fabric of space itself. Shields that absorbed incoming energy and turned it back against the attacker. Engines that could jump across light years faster than any Mithrani computer could track. The battle lasted for hours. It should not have lasted for minutes. Veth watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Human weapons cut through Mithrani shields as if they were paper. Human ships appeared and disappeared without warning, striking from impossible angles. Every tactic he tried failed. Every formation he ordered was broken. "This is impossible," he whispered, as his flagship shook from another impact. "They are one species. We are the greatest military power in the galaxy." "Sir, we have lost 60% of the fleet," his officer reported. "The remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat." Veth wanted to refuse. His pride demanded that he fight to the last ship. But as he watched another dozen Mithrani vessels explode on the display, he understood that continuing would mean total destruction. "All ships. Fall back to Mithrani space," he ordered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. Maximum speed. What remained of the invasion fleet fled in chaos. Human ships pursued them to the border, but did not follow into Mithrani territory. They had made their point. On the Mithrani homeworld, the news arrived like a physical blow. The greatest fleet ever assembled had been destroyed in a single afternoon. Thousands of ships lost. Hundreds of thousands of warriors dead. And the humans had barely scratched. General Veth expected to be executed for his failure. Instead, he received a transmission from Earth that confused him completely. "People of the Mithrani hegemony," Secretary General Marcus Webb said in the broadcast, "your leaders sent you to die in a war they could not win. We bear you no hatred. You are soldiers who followed orders as soldiers always have. We are returning your prisoners because we know you are not our true enemies. The Mithrani had captured enemies in every war they had ever fought. Those prisoners had been enslaved, tortured, or executed. It was the natural way of things. The strong dominated the weak. But the humans were doing something different. They were treating their prisoners well, giving them medical care, feeding them properly, allowing them to contact their families. And now they were sending them home. Your true enemies are those who lied to you, Marcus continued. Who told you humanity was weak when we are strong? Who told you we could be conquered when we cannot? Who sent your children to slaughter rather than admit their own failures? On the Mithrani homeworld, crowds began to gather. Workers who had lost sons in the invasion. Families who had lost fathers. They had been told that victory was certain. They had been promised glory and conquest. Instead, they had received death and defeat. The whispers began quietly. Questions about why the war had been started. Doubts about the leaders who had ordered it. Anger at the generals who had survived while common soldiers died. Within a year, the Mithrani hegemony had collapsed from within. General Veth was tried for crimes against his own people by a revolutionary government that wanted peace with humanity. The Supreme Council that had ruled for 3 centuries was swept away. The new Mithrani. Government sent representatives to Earth, humble and careful. They found humanity willing to negotiate, demanding equality but not revenge. A treaty was signed that gave both species what they needed without taking from the other. The Galaxy Council, already weakened, dissolved completely after the Mithrani defeat. High Chancellor Voreth fled to a remote colony where he lived out his remaining years in obscure poverty. His great project of containing humanity had failed utterly in the years that followed. A new organization emerged from the chaos. The Galactic Federation was built on principles that the old council had ignored. Equality between species regardless of age or power. Mutual respect regardless of differences. Cooperation instead of domination. Secretary General Marcus Webb, his hair now completely gray, addressed the inaugural assembly of the new federation. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, including many who had once voted against humanity at every opportunity. We did not want this conflict, Marcus said. His voice was tired but satisfied. We wanted only to live among the stars as free beings equal to any other. When that right was denied, we fought for it. Now, together, we can build something better. Something that will last. He looked out at the assembled delegates, human and alien sitting side by side. The old order is gone. The universe it created is finished. The new order begins today, with all of us working together as equals. Let us make it worthy of every species here. In the front row, Ambassador Catherine Price wiped a tear from her eye. Beside her, Admiral Grace Holloway nodded with quiet pride. Commander Samuel Drake, invited as a hero of the Kepler defense, stood at attention with his crew. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, beings of every shape and size watched the ceremony. Many had feared humanity. Many had tried to hold them back. Now they saw something they had never expected. Humanity had won. They had the power to dominate the galaxy if they chose. But instead of demanding submission, they were offering partnership. Instead of taking revenge for decades of mistreatment, they were building bridges. It was perhaps the most human thing they could have done. The old galaxy was gone forever. The new one was just beginning. And at its heart, no longer contained or controlled, humanity was finally taking its rightful place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as servants, but as equals. The universe would never be the same.